Right, so back with another one. So this time we're going to talk more about shoulder mobility, shoulder pain, most common problems I know which causes shoulder pain. I'm going to show you a few movements which you can do at home with minimum equipment. Obviously I'm going to be using some resistance bands. It's not a big investment. I recommend that anyone who are taking their shoulder health seriously would get some. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do without them, but that will definitely help you a lot to develop the necessary balance around your shoulder girdle. So we're going to look into how the muscles around the shoulder are doing specific functions, and we're going to look into the scapula, which is also, in my opinion, even more important area to look at than anything else, to be honest, because if your scapula is not moving properly, you're probably going to get a lot of issues with your shoulders in general, and you're going to get a lot of pain if your scapula is not moving properly. So basically we're going to look into a few motions, which are protraction when you're moving your scapula forward like that. Then we got retraction when you're moving your scapula backwards like this, this is what you're going to often hear a lot of people say, like, pull your scapula back before you do this exercise and that exercise. But for the most part, there are a few exceptions when it is a good advice, but for the most part it is not, because your scapula is not meant to be like this the whole time while doing anything, unless you're doing a specific exercise to train the muscles between the scapula. It would mostly should be a good balance between protraction and retraction, so it'd be somewhere around here. Then we got elevation when you're shrugging your shoulders up like that, and we got depression when you're depressing your shoulders like that, or scapula. And then we got two other subtle movements. We got upwards rotation and we got downward rotation, and those are, in my opinion, some of the most important things most people miss when they talk about or go about their shoulder training and whatnot, and doing all the prehab exercises in the world. If you're not addressing the rotation aspect of your scapula, you're probably going to be in quite a bit of pain. I mean, you're going to get some tight muscles anyway, just because life is complicated. It's not as simple as that, but in general you're going to avoid a lot of injury and a lot of extreme pain just by understanding how your shoulders are supposed to work, move, and whatnot. So first area to look at would be, in my opinion, one of the most important muscles is serratus anterior, which is kind of, you can see it here on the rib cage. It's like, if you palpate, you can feel the fibers right here. It oftentimes get tight, so that's the muscle which is protracting your scapula forward like that, like rounding that upper back. For most people, the upper part of the serratus is too tight because the upper fibers tilt the shoulder forward and a little bit up like that. So it kind of stuck here. So it means the tiny little heads of your serratus under here in your armpit are quite tight. So it would be a good idea to release them. And then we're going to look at the other area, which is the lower part of your fibers, which usually are excessively stretched in an elongated position, because we've always been told to do this, which doesn't make any sense at all. So we're going to figure out how to activate the lower part of your scap, get that upward rotation. You'll also feel that your latissimus dorsi, the big fat muscle on the side here, gets activated. And then how to release those upper fibers, which is a little bit of a challenge. It's not easy. If you can, I would definitely suggest that you go get a professional to release the upper fibers, because they can sort of lift the scapula up and get their fingers underneath and get those fibers all nice and loose. But we're going to try as much as we can with a foam roller and a tennis ball. Right, so one simple way how to improve your overhead mobility and strength and stability is first to unglue and release whatever is excessively tight. So which muscles are overworking for stability. And the good way to try to get that is just get a foam roller, kind of roll on the corner of it until you kind of start to feel it squeezing against the ribs, and you will immediately feel a sharp pain, because those muscles, if they've been tight for a while, it's gonna feel pretty terrible. And oftentimes when we sleep, we do a lot of this. So guess what? The upper fibers are more in kind of a shortened position, and then the lower fibers are kind of stretched, and the scapula pulls back and around. So this technically is you sitting in this type of position for about 8 hours every single night. Not really ideal for your posture. So again, try to get on the corner so you can really dig in those fibers, squeeze them against the rib cage. Spend as much time as you need to until you start to feel the pain starts to subside. It could take 2 minutes, it could take 10 minutes. It depends from the individual. If you've been lifting with a bad posture for a while, probably your upper serratus is going to be very, very tight. And it wouldn't hurt to just roll all the side of your rib cage through like that. And same goes to the other side. Same rules apply. You kind of want to get that corner or side of your foam roller deep in the armpit like this, and try to get quite high in there. I mean, obviously we're quite limited how much we can do in a home environment because it's difficult to get in there. Usually you need a professional to do that, to like properly release it, but we can do at least some work for it to make it a lot easier to activate the rest of the muscles we need for the serratus to work properly. So I'm probably going to make a series where we're going to look at each individual muscle around your scap and your shoulder, and try to breathe and control your breath. Is going to help with relaxation, but it's going to be very, very painful for most of you. And yeah, we're going to go through every single muscle around the shoulder and the scapula and see how we can try and fix some things while you're sitting at home. For example, you can do these as a prehab before your upper body movements. Even when you do your lower body, like if you notice that your shoulders are quite tight, just focus on one area, fix it as much as you can, and then move on to the other areas to get that mobility and strength in there. So that is one option. The other one would be getting a tennis ball, lacrosse ball, softball, and just trying to dig in a little bit deeper, because the surface area of a ball-shaped object is going to be less than of a foam roller, so you can kind of get in and be a bit more specific. So again, getting that armpit, find those sweet spots. Oh yeah, and you will definitely feel immediately when you're going to find those sweet spots. And spend some time, give it some chance to release, and then we can move on to the strengthening movement. So then to activate the lower serratus anterior, you need to do some sort of overhead movement with a little bit of resistance. There are many movements you can choose from. One would be the good old regular wise, but make sure you're trying to depress and then lift your arms as high as you can. So you could do as many reps as you can, like 12, maybe 16. Just go up like this. Make sure you brace your core, depress your ribs. Don't overextend with your upper back. There's no point. You're gonna lose the surface. The rib cage is like a surface for your scapula to move on. Your scapula and your rib cage is actually a joint, like a big joint. So it's not as, imagine your finger joint, just your scapula is, and your rib cage forms like a much bigger joint. So therefore, if you overextend, the surface for your scapula to move is not as efficient anymore. So as we are kind of working on the posture, we want to optimize the surface for the scapula so you are able to activate the muscles as efficiently as possible. So again, make sure you depress your ribs, make sure you don't overarch, and then you're going to feel it even more in your mid upper back, also in your lower traps and stuff like that. So movement number 2 for you would be, again, is going to be with the resistance band. For example, something like that. This might be a little bit too intense for some. So basically what you're going to do You're gonna wrap this around your rib cage, make them cross in front of your body, hook behind the thumb, and then the whole point is get your elbows 90 degrees more or less, and then push your elbows forward, and you can go a little bit up, a little bit down, and again, make sure you depress your ribs when you breathe in. Think about breathing in your upper back. So think about expanding your upper back instead of breathing through your stomach forward and like in and out, or with your rib cage up and down like this. Think about breathing in your upper back, opening it up, and then pushing your elbows forward, and then resisting with external rotators against the band like that. So think about one full breath in and one full breath out as one repetition. Do about 10, 12. Try to get about 2-3 sets. That's going to be a great movement to kind of prep your shoulders and prep your serratus anterior before any like pushing movements, pulling movements, or any movements in that sense. So again, cross them in front of you, hook behind the thumb, just like that, and try to resist. Pull your elbows forward as much as you can. You're going to notice a little bit of rounding of your upper back, and press at the same time. So basically you're going to be loading the lower part of your serratus anterior, which is going to promote that upward rotation, which is a mix of protraction and up rotation. So that's important when you are working with your overhead positions. And the movement number 3, for this you can use any object which is moderately heavy. It's going to be like an overhead press movement without necessarily pressing it all the way with your elbows locked out. For example, I would use this kettlebell just for demonstration's sake. So similar as you did with the bands, we're gonna think about pushing the elbows together, press the ribs, breathe in the upper back, and then press up and slowly down. It is also a great way to engage your serratus anterior. And then other things to look at in the next video is probably going to be your trapezius, because your traps and your serratus anterior are very closely related muscles, because they both are almost like one muscle which does a lot of different things. They do pull the scapula forward and back, so they kind of keep it nice and stable on the rib cage. So the traps, they would retract together with your rhomboids and whatnot, but we're going to look into those muscles in detail in another video. And your serratus anterior basically does the complete opposite, but also at the same time your traps and your serratus anterior is going to be the ones who are going to be working together to upwardly rotate your scapula. And then we're going to look into some fiber directions on the traps and some exercises which are going to be kind of crossing the roads together with the exercises I showed you today, 3 movements, to kind of really improve the mobility and stability of your scapula. All right, I hope this makes any sense. Trying to improve the quality of the videos. If you have any suggestions or questions, please ask away. So in the next one, I'm gonna be looking into